Hey, Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for those that are just tuning in, I cut off Tom in a great thought before I hit record. And so I was rude and I was like, we can't talk about this yet. I got to hit record and we got to start talking about it. And so we were talking about Anthropic came out with a report. So I'll let you continue on that.
Yeah. So we were jamming about how AI is changing so quickly and the impact that AI is going to make to the entire world across all industries, right? I think it's massive. I think if you look at it in the right way, and I feel like the right way to look at it is through an optimistic lens. I think AI is very, very exciting and it's very, very promising. So what I was getting into was back in March, Anthropic published this really awesome study. And what it's trying to do is to kind of map out what the future potential can look like. So Anthropic believes that AI can automate a lot of the tedious, redundant work that everyone has to do on a daily basis across every single industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at industries like software development, technology, what programmers typically have to code up, like you've probably seen in the news how far things have gotten, right? And it seems like AI can already automate and code up everything that a programmer can typically do. But we're actually still only in the early days. Right now, only 35% of code can be written by AI, just from a capability standpoint. But the theoretical max is actually 97%. That means 97% of code that humans are writing right now can actually be done by AI. We're still pretty far from that world. Now, when you look at business and marketing, specifically for me, which is AI search and search engine optimization, SEO, their forecast is 94% of that work can actually be automated. Now, that sounds kind of crazy and it sounds very scary. But if you look at it from a different angle, I find it very, very refreshing because what it ends up doing is it leaves agencies, SEO agencies, to focus on the higher level work. How do you actually drive the most value for your clients? And this would be strategy, thinking through your SEO strategy, content strategy. That's the stuff that they pay big dollars for, right?
But agencies are giving that away and they're charging for execution. That's how I see it, which is wrong. Like, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But and that's why I love the podcast. But I hear and I see so many agencies and I look at what they're billing, how they're doing it, what they're charging for, what they're giving away. And I'm like, you guys are giving away strategy in the very beginning to win the client to just do the execution, which AI can do better than you.
100%. Right. And so long time ago, I used to work for large companies like Apple and Walmart e-commerce. Well, these big companies, they have massive marketing budgets. They have massive internal teams to do everything across the board, including SEO, right? But every Fortune 10, every Fortune 100 company works with an agency. Why is that? It's not because they can't execute to it. Like, they have tons of resources to execute to it. They can do the work. They don't see across multiple companies. They don't know this. Like, they need input on the strategy front. That's actually the really, really high value stuff that you can charge big bucks for.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just, we have to be confident in what we do on the strategy. It's just, and that's what I've been trying to do for years and years. That's why I've always told everybody you have to have this offering ladder where you start off, you meet with the client just to kind of triage. Where are they? Can you actually help them out? Do you want to help them out? Which is another one, right? And then charge something for what I call the foot in the door, which is a paid strategy. And they're starting to pay for it. So they get used to it. And then that leads to the next project. And then that leads to the big retainer. But your clients are either training you or you're training them. And I rather train them. But I do want to get into what you do, especially around, everyone's talking about whatever we want to call it. Let's say search engine optimization for AI. Everyone makes up terms, geo, whatever it is, right?
Kind of like AI, AEO, like
Oh yeah,
whatever.
like it's just they're making up terms, right? Like I'm like, I get that, I respect that. Like just make up stuff. Maybe it sticks, but no one's going to remember that you came up with it. But how can we help our clients as well as ourselves get ranked, right? Like you have a number of different, strategies in order to do that.
Yeah. So I think number one, SEO and GEO are intertwined. So I'm gonna definitely make that clear. Um, I believe most marketers are kind of far enough along in this journey to understand and kind of start to understand that GEO, AEO, AI search is not completely separate. So the way I think about it is GEO is built on the foundation of SEO. So you
Yep.
still need to show up. Your clients still need to show up in Google search results, but just showing up is not enough. And that's because AI actually looks at content very, very differently. So instead of just relying on keywords and authority and backlinks, all that traditional things that SEO agencies have to think about, AI can actually read content the way that a human being would read content. So, writing the content in a way that is actually convincing and is AI readable, that's actually one of the most important things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember back in the day with, I started doing SEO around 2000, and I agree with you. Like you could put in just the same search term over and over, hell, bury it in the same color in the background, and that would get you up. But it's almost like I tell people, like when we're creating content, I'm thinking about what are people struggling with? What are their questions that they have? What are the answers they're looking for rather than that keyword anymore? I mean, the keyword I think helps. But I think there's a lot more behind it. And even from, I talk to founders and agency CEOs all the time. They're like, oh, I don't want to create content. I'm like, really? Like that just helps you get out there. I mean, where do you think Gemini is pulling all their stuff from? What about these YouTube shorts? like now it can transcribe all these videos in a second, take screenshots, whatever it is. Like it's pretty amazing.
I think content is more important than ever. I think content is still king. Like that phrase is still very, very true. Now, the way that I advise my customers who are agencies, SEO and GEO agencies, what I say is the first thing that you need to figure out is for your particular client, what space do they need to play in? Like what should they actually care about? What do people actually ask AI about when they're having a conversation that you should actually be in? That's actually the first part is identifying what topic areas is called the semantic space. The mapping out that same semantic space. Once you do that, then you can start to kind of translate that semantic space, all these topics, into very specific prompts that you should try to help your clients show up in.
Like let's use us as an example, agency mastery, right? Like obviously we target agency owners that, want to create an asset out of their agency rather than a liability and like get that freedom, not just hit certain stupid revenue numbers. So like, what would you advise us?
Yeah. So what the first question I would have is, what conversations do you typically want to have with your current customers? Like what do you guys actually talk about, you and your customers right now?
Okay. So
Right.
we talk about a lot of times scaling the agency where they're not the bottleneck anymore, where their team can make the decisions without them, where they can actually take 2 weeks off and the business grows versus declines. That's a
and when you talk about scaling the agency, how do you go about doing that?
So scaling the agency is more of taking responsibility off my shoulders, delegating to other people, and then we can expand by getting more profit, because most agencies are not profitable. Because a lot of times when they come to us, they think they want to scale. I'm like, well, you just need to optimize first, man, or you're going to die.
Yep. And when you talk about optimizing and doing that and increasing profitability, are you thinking about hiring more people, hiring lower cost people, using technology? How do you think about doing that?
Getting more efficient and giving more power to my existing team, and realizing that one of the big shifts that I see, and you probably hear this too, talk to an agency that has 15 people. They're still in the no man's land world. And they go, I never want to be a 50-person, 100-person agency because they haven't built the right systems to allow them to get away from working with all these other people.
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit more. So, you actually just talked about a couple really important concepts. You talked about agency finances, right? Understanding the income statements, the balance sheet, all of that relating to your agency, that is actually a really important topic, right? And then kind of building on top of that is, how do you actually get down to cash flow and margins and profit? At the end of the day, that's what agencies are really that's how you maximize shareholder value, right? So understanding that part. And then what are the different levers? What are the different levers that you can actually pull? Well, you can increase top line. You can reduce cost. How do you reduce cost? There are tools in place that can tools and systems and processes in place that you can actually reduce cost and be more efficient. So these are topics that you might want to care about, and then people might actually be asking about what are the best ways for me to build Claude skills. How do I leverage Claude to be more efficient? What can I actually do to start to automate some of the more redundant work that goes on every single day with the agency? So this is how you start off with what your business does. What are the topics that you should care about? And then drilling down to what are the prompts that you might want to show up in. And from there, it becomes a little bit easier to figure out. Once you identify what are the important prompts that you want to show up in, then you can actually use the data. You can actually just, if you want to do it manually, type in that prompt into ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Google AI Review, all that kind of stuff, right? And see what it comes back with. So now you would actually get an answer. You want to see, are you being recommended? If that's what you're trying to do, are you actually in the actual answer itself? That's important. That's a good signal. Are your competitors in the answer? That helps you understand share of voice. And just as important, what are the citations? What are the sources that are being used by AI to generate that answer? Right. So now you can then trace back to what's all the content that's being pulled in, and then you can analyze this content and understand, why is AI recommending or using content from your competitor over your competitor? Or do you just lack that piece of content? Right. And if you lack that piece of content, then you have a content gap. And then when you have a content gap, you need to figure out, how do you fill it? Now, how do you fill it is actually very important. One way of doing it, and this is the wrong way, is tell Claude, okay, now write me some content that fills in this gap. That doesn't cut it, right? Because what is AI going to do? It's going to go out and look for the same data that it actually used to give you that answer.
Yeah.
That's repackaging existing content. Like that doesn't actually drive the conversation forward. You don't get credit for it. You don't get credit for that, right? Like AI knows, where it got the content from.
Mm-hmm.
For you to actually get credit, you need to move the conversation forward. How do you move the conversation forward? Well, if you or your client is a subject matter expert, again, and this goes back to what we started off talking about, if you are an expert in a specific domain, if your agency is focused on a very specific vertical, you're going to know things that other agencies aren't going to know.
Yeah.
And your client, if they're good, they would actually have subject matter experts who would know how to actually talk about that piece of content. Then it becomes easier to just create that content, right? Understand what's the content pillar that you're trying, going after, what's the brief, and then execute to that.
Hi there, agency owners. Let me ask you, are you ready to scale your agency without increasing your overhead costs? If yes, then you need to know about E2M Solutions. Now, E2M is the #1 most reliable white label partner for agencies. They specialize in web design, WordPress development, e-commerce, SEO, and content writing. They basically do all the heavy lifting, which frees you up to focus on growing your agency. Now, here's the best part. E2M's just not another vendor. With over 10 years of experience, their team of over 300 experts has a track record of delivering for more than 300 agencies. They're your strategic partner. They deliver on time every time, so you can focus on what you do best. Now, E2M's mission is simple: to help 500 agencies increase their revenue and profit margins with white label services that actually work. And to help you get started, they're offering a special deal, 10% off for the first 3 months, but act fast because it's only a limited time offer. So head over to e2msolutions.com/smartagency to check out their transparent and their flexible pricing. Trust me, if you're ready to grow without burning out, E2M is the partner you've been looking for. That's e2msolutions.com/smartagency. Go check them out and tell them Jason Swank sent you. Yeah, I was searching over the weekend when I was redoing a lot of these different websites, and Google started Google's been good and ChatGPT's been good about recommending us. And so I would click on the link and I would see the sources, and then it highlighted the FAQs that we put on the page, and, it would highlight the markdown language that we used on the podcast or all that kind of stuff. I was like, okay. And I think it helps too with our particular business. I mean, we've been doing it for 13 years and, have thousands and thousands of pieces of content out. So I would be like, man, if I wasn't coming up, I think there'd be a huge problem.
Yeah.
How can you make it even better though? So we have 943 episodes on the podcast, over 1,000 videos on YouTube, right? How would you make us better?
In terms of showing up
even more.
Yeah. So I think something that is really important to understand is that for AI search, there's actually a much longer long tail than in SEO. People are having colorful conversations with AI about all sorts of different things. And you want to strategically show up for a lot of the long tail, right? So I would actually argue that to show up better, you need to show up more broadly.
So don't talk as much about, agency and maybe more general business.
I think there are important informational topic areas that you want to show up in.
Okay.
Right. I think that is important, right? Like,
Okay.
I mean, just showing up across the board and it doesn't actually drive any results for you. I'm not advocating that. But what I am advocating is um, there is a lot of value to showing up for informational prompts.
Yes, I see that too. Yeah. No, I
And
like it. Yeah, I mean and I think it's at the end of the day, I was talking to the interview I did yesterday. It's still content's king,
content is king. Content is
right?
king.
Like it just
It's just how do you do it like with more scale? I think that's a very like that's a really hard part without technology, right? Like how
so.
do you
So I saw something today from Alex Hermosi on an email, and he was talking about you know creating 50, like everyone should create 50 AI influencers, and these AI influencers need to recommend your stuff and that kind of. And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, but then don't you just get a bunch of this slop out there? And I was trying to see it on both sides. I still don't know which side I see it on yet because it was so new when I read it. I was like, I mean, what are your feelings on that?
specifically in terms of
Because that's kind
AI?
of well, it's for I think of the phase of kind of content over the year or social media, right? So
Mhm.
the people before social media that had the power were these actors, these well-known people, right? But then these social media influencers came up. They have power, right? And that's why all these celebrities of doing podcasts, from the Kelsey brothers to Joe Rogan, all these kind of people, right? And they're kind of dominating the market. But now the capability of creating these avatars and having that create content, and some you can tell, some you probably can't. Um, Now we have to compete with all that. Like we're right, like, and so there's going to be so much out there. How do we decipher between it? What's your thoughts on that?
So I would actually separate it between visibility to humans and visibility to AI. I think they're actually two very different concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about visibility for humans, right? I think the influencer economy really came about during the mobile boom. So what? So I think when Apple launched iPhone, it completely changed the game. It let people use internet and share all of their thoughts in real time from anywhere, super easy. So no longer do you need to be someone who's on TV, and you can only have so many like actors and actresses, right, on TV. Now anyone can actually have an audience if you have something interesting to say, right? And what influencers typically do, is most of them have a very specific ICP that they target, and they create hyper specialized and focused content to get to that very specific audience. And if you're able to create content that is highly engaging and your ICP cares about it, then you'll get eyeballs, right? So I think that is still true, right? I think that is still true, and you'll still have that on social media. I think AI, on the other hand, yes, you can have AI that creates content that can still reach humans, right? And that's good for marketing, but that doesn't necessarily tie in, at least directly, with AI search,
Yeah.
right? I think if an AI influencer can reach a human and a human engages the with the company, with the products, whatever it is, that can create additional content. But I think that content that the AI is creating that doesn't necessarily impact how you show up, because that AI, again, is repackaging existing information unless you give it new data to actually put out there.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost, I was telling someone maybe last year when I started seeing, the AI searches and all this kind of stuff, like you almost got to create almost kind of two types of content, one for humans, one for, one for AI, that's purpose driven. So it's fascinating.
100%.
It's changing fast
Right.
too.
Yeah. And like something that I do like more on the tactical side of what I recommend to my customers is I always get pushback on, oh, it's difficult to create new content. It's difficult to have a subject matter expert at the client to actually create content. Totally get it, right? Everyone's busy. People have daytime jobs and everything. Now, what you can do is actually leverage the power of AI, right? Um, Content being written by AI is not a bad thing. You don't really get dinged for it. You get dinged when you have bad content, unoriginal content. So if you actually kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, identify what topics your clients should care about, what are the prompts, who's being cited, where are the gaps, where are your clients not getting cited, and what's the content gap. Once you do that, you can actually very quickly put together a list of questions that you can then send over to a subject matter expert at your client. And you're going to say, hey, just open up Loom or open up whatever recording app that you like to use and just talk freely and answer these questions, right? And then from there, AI can transcribe all, like the actual raw recording. You can get a transcript. That transcript then can be, chunked out into many, many different like forms of content that you can use over a period of time, over a 1 month period, right? Like that's a really easy way to actually operationalize this fresh content concept.
Oh, awesome. Well, Tom, I appreciate you coming on the show and chatting with us and going over kind of your viewpoint of how geo is on top of SEO and providing some of the insights. And for everyone listening, make sure you go check out what Tom does. And until next time, have a swank day.